Now grid is much more powerful than we've shown even up to this point. Right now we have a wrapper that's kind of encompassing this boxed layout, and we might want elements that break out along the edges, out the tops and the sides and things like that, while we have others that maintain kind of that wrapper feel to them. And so I wanted to kind of show you an approach that we could use to build that full width layout. And really, in order to do that, we have to turn the whole screen into a grid rather than having a box grid inside of everything. So the way we want to do that is, I'm going to use the word wrapper, but we could change that to grid if we wanted to kind of be more self-explanatory. We're not going to need this min and max anymore. We're not even going to need our width anymore. I don't really want a white background because sometimes I want our background to have that pattern applied to it. We don't need to center it anymore because we're going to let grid do all the centering. And I'm going to take off that shadow and border radius on our thing, and we're just going to go straight up with grid. Now, like I said before, we want to turn these into columns, okay? And I could do something as simple as adding a 1 fraction, into those, okay? Oops. Something like that. And what that would do, that would turn it into an 8-column layout, because it would be 1 column of a 1 fraction, 6 columns here of down to 0 and as big as 150 or 900 pixels total for that area, and then last to 1 fraction. But we want to actually pull out and say that this is going to be a min-max. And min-max that can get as big as 1 fraction. But if the screen shrinks in really small and we go like ultra mobile, I want those to collapse into a min-max of 0 pixels, okay? So I'm going to take that and I'm going to put that on the left-hand side and the right-hand side as well. And we'll save that. Now what we've done there is we've now created an 8-column layout. And so, if I refresh, you can see that it goes all the way across the screen. We do have this little bit of border that goes along the edges out here, and that's the body tag. And so we need to add a margin 0 to that, and that will get rid of that guy. And so it's disappeared now. But it does go edge to edge. And we don't want it to go at edge to edge. We want certain elements to do, but not everything. So let's look at main first. And main, rather than going from 1 to -1, we want it to start counting at 2. And we want to go all the way to -2. And if you, again, remember how that works, is it starts counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Wait, it would be... If we had a 6-column layout, it would go 1 to 7, and so that would become 8 and 9. I think that should translate to 9 if we want to go directly across the screen. Oh, sorry, all the way across the screen. So it should be 8 to stay to our column. And again, if you ever have problems with that, go look up like a grid, CSS grid lines, and you'll kind of see how that grid works. Sometimes I like to go negative. Like a -2, it just makes more sense to me to kind of go in that much. Our footer, so our main content now is basically a wrapper, right? It goes from there to there. And now the cool thing about this is, if you again remember how we set this up, we said we want the edge to typically be 1 fraction unless there's not enough space. The maximum we want our innards to be is 150 in each column, but they can be as small as 0. So let's take and shrink these down. And you see how our bars on the side, it will never grow bigger than 900 pixels across, but our fractions on the side will either be 1 fraction or down to 0. And they basically kind of collapse in on themselves. So it's almost like we're doing a adaptive layout, or a responsive layout, I guess, or adaptive layout, allowing us to resize, and it becomes very mobile friendly, okay? So we're allowing Flexbox to do all that heavy lifting of a responsive design. The next thing we want is we want our monkey hut to actually be within the wrapper. We allow the image to come out the outsides, but let's let that monkey hut to sit in this area. So to do that, we've got to go to our header. It's going to stay on row 2 to 3. That's fine. But we're going to start counting at 2. And let's go to 5 or 6. Let's go to 5 and look at that really quick. And you can kind of see that going there. Now I probably should look at maybe some of our colors on how that goes against my background. But you can see how that is now maintaining itself where it needs to go. And again, use that inspector, go in here, come on top of wrapper, go on top of header, and look and just visualize. You know, you can see all the columns there. You can see this column on the side that's collapsing in on itself, right? When I come to my wrapper. We can see the 6 columns on the inside. You can see how that header is now taking 3 columns up of that, you know, on top of the hero image. And we're using order to stack that on top. That's really important, okay? The last thing we've got here is our navigation. Our navigation is spanning the entire screen. Now we want that blue bar to go edge to edge, and that's great, but we want our home to actually start where, you know, our content would start, right about here, right where this line is, okay? Because we want to have that alignment. So to do that, we really have to almost kind of draw a blue bar. And so we could do that. We can add a div, say ID equals blue bar. We could do something as simple as that. And we could come up here to the top, look for our nav code where we have all those colors. So here's our background color blue, I think, taking place. Okay, and we could take that out. And, oops, we'll do that. And we're going to say that this blue bar, you know what we're going to do? Let's actually make our nav and ID blue bar position sticky, 0 at the top, and our background color blue. And then our unordered list and everything that's going to be on the inside will be fine. Okay, so that blue bar is going to stay at the top. It's going to be sticky. It's going to be blue. And then down here, we're going to have our navigation. And our navigation is going to be sticky at the top in blue, but we're going to have our navigation go to another place. And it's going to start on the second column and go to -2 or go to 8 that we said before. Now we do need to place that blue bar, so we're going to say blue bar is going to, and let me just copy this down, and we can just kind of fill it. Grid column 1 to -1, we want to span, and we want it to be on row 1-2. So let's take a look at that and see how that worked out. Okay, so now we can come over our wrapper, and we can see blue bar is taking up its space, going all the way from here all the way to there. Okay, and then when we go over nav, we can see nav now is taking, starting that second column, and it can go all the way across the screen appropriately, and that looks really good. So this is a really simple way of having these bars go all the way across the screen and layering them on top of one another, as we've seen here, in a really nice way, and then having content. I didn't actually take this main. I should probably make this background color white. Let me do that really fast. We have that main, that main. We probably just want to go to this main, I guess, up here, and we could just do a background color white, and we should probably also apply that to our footer as well. But you can see now that we've got that white edge in there. I could go through and add that shadow back in if I wanted to. Our footer's down here. It needs to be made full screen. I haven't done that yet either. It just goes, you know, column 1 to 1, so that needs to be a 2 to 8, and it also needs to have a background color applied to it. But I think you guys all get the idea of how that works. And there's our footer down there. So kind of a cool way to have a full screen layout.